What's up, and welcome back to the greatest teacher of all time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color to highlight their personalities, strategies, and philosophies on education. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and visit greatestteacherofalltime.com to help me support more great teachers like Miss Lewis. What's up, Nyia?
Oh, hey.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. I saw you doing some cool things on Instagram and TikTok, and I was like, she deserves some recognition.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited.
Yeah, you should be, because we have a lot to get into. So, first off, just getting your background out the way. You were an elementary school teacher for 6 years, correct?
hmm
All right. And what grade levels do you teach?
I taught third grade, which is my favorite grade, shameless plug. Third grade, first grade, fifth grade, and then substituted some in the other grades as well. So fourth grade.
Okay, yeah, kind of that range of like the lower levels. So I did high school physics, so I was mainly with the bigger guys, but cool.
Yeah.
So after your 6 years of teaching, you are now an assistant principal. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yep. Big transition.
Yeah, I'm sure. And before we actually get into all that stuff, the transition, everything, to everyone else, it is the end of November, the Thanksgiving break. You made it, Miss Lewis. How do you feel? Your first year as an assistant principal, you made it to Thanksgiving break. How do you feel?
I feel very accomplished. And I think even hearing you say that in this moment, it's just like, yeah, I did make it to Thanksgiving break. So I feel very proud of myself, honestly.
Yeah, because it's a huge accomplishment to make it as a teacher, but being an AP at that level, I'm sure you're dealing with a lot more things too, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Your caseload gets a lot bigger, so like your lens is on a lot more.
Yeah, I'm sure. But I do want to talk more about your life as assistant principal. But first, let's go back a little more. Before you were an assistant principal, as you were teaching, you were also an educational specialist, right?
hmm
Can you tell me a little about that experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So towards my last 2 years of teaching, so my fifth and my sixth year, I dabbled more in consulting, and especially when in regards to classroom management. So that has always been near and dear to my heart. I think it was my third year teaching, my instructional coach at the time came into my room and she was like doing an observation, giving some feedback. And one of the things that she said that I has always stuck with me, she was like, "Oh, you're the queen of classroom management." I was like, "Yeah, okay." So I took that and I kind of ran with it. So school culture, classroom culture has always been really near to my heart, and it's always something that's on like my radar. So the last 2 years of my teaching career, like in the classroom, I started to reach out to some of my educators that I was in close contact with, and then of course via social media, educators would start to reach out to me in regards to just getting advice for classroom culture, activities they could do. Certain ways to manage behaviors in the classroom. The list goes on. So that was a really cool experience to finally be able to take something that I always held dear to my heart and share it with others.
Yeah, and I love that too, because I feel like, at least myself, I think a lot of other teachers experience too, but like sometimes for me, I was like in the groove of my classroom and I was like, I am so good at this. I need
Yeah.
to expand this reach and like let other teachers know like what is possible too. Is that the same type of feeling you felt?
Yeah, absolutely. And I thank God for that experience every day because it was the summer of, I want to say 2022, maybe 2021 or 2022. I can't remember this moment. However, it's when I launched my brand on TikTok, Instagram, social media, all the things. And I think that was also a very pivotal moment for me because I realized that not only were my experiences so aligned to what a lot of other educators were experiencing at the same time, but what I was sharing was actually very nurturing to other educators and very helpful for their experience. So I was like, okay, God is leading me somewhere here. So like I'm gonna stick with it and see how far it goes. And I'm very grateful to have had all of the connections I've made with teachers thus far and helping them kind of bring the joy back to their classrooms as well.
Yeah, and I love that because you are definitely blowing up online. And it's cool that you still have that, seems like a natural instinct in you to want to share the things you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. for sure, especially when you notice that you're not in this alone, especially as educators and everything that is going on in education right now and that has been going on throughout all of history. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely is a lot. And I do want to talk more about your stuff on social media. But first, let's hear a break from one of my sponsors, Teachers of Color Matter.
Friend, we need to talk. As a teacher of color with a social justice mindset, I know if I give big to my students, I also need to replenish big to myself. My Clap for Yourself 5-minute reflection journal is perfect. This journal was designed for teachers of color, so it takes my experiences in the classroom to heart. And friend, this journal has everything. It helps me address feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, and self-doubt. I can either fill out a template on the right side or process a larger issue on the left. The templates bring more intention and success into my day, and I can use the adult coloring moments when I'm calling a parent or during a staff meeting. And Dr. Michelle has written letters to me throughout the book. It's almost as if she's reading my mind. The inspirational quotes remind me that I'm part of a legacy. Representation matters, and I do make an impact. What does your morning routine look like?
All right, welcome back. So Nyia, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was your journey from being in the classroom to now being an assistant principal. And one thing that you actually mentioned in one of your videos is where you talk about people management.
Teachers are expected to manage anywhere from 20 to upwards of 30 to 35 people at a time. Let's not forget, those people are kids, right? So when most people hear that, I don't think they are actually aware of what that looks like and what that means for the teacher. Most people are not even encountering, let alone speaking to 30 people a day, you know, and they're definitely not managing everything they do within that day. And that's what classroom management is. How do I manage, 25 little people? And when we say manage, it's everything from, they're crying because they just got hurt on the playground, to they just got in an argument with their friends, all the way to I have to teach this baby how to read, or this kiddo is really struggling at home. It's managing and being aware of all of their individual emotions and all of the behaviors that may manifest because of the things that they're going through. Yeah.
Right. So in this video, you talk about managing the difference between like 20 to 35 kids at a time. And for high school teachers, they get like multiple loads of that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Can you just tell me about your experience with people management in terms of students and adults?
Yeah, well, in terms of students, one thing I'll say starting off here is that I always had this understanding. I can't remember who told me this at some point, but it stuck with me that managing people and managing students were very similar. And I can see some of the nuances within that, but I'm learning more and more every day that managing people and adults is vastly different for a lot of reasons. But to speak on the student management experience, again, like I said, classroom culture and school culture has always been something that came a bit more naturally to me. And so classroom management and student management also fall within that umbrella. I think what made it so near to my heart was the opportunity to build relationship. And I know that's also like a hot topic because we hear educators oftentimes talking about how the only solution that they'll get, and I say that very lightly, is to build relationships with students, which that actually does hold a lot of truth. Is what I'm still noticing is that relationships do play a big role in what you'll experience in the classroom. However, there is a lot of other sides to that as well when it goes like when we're thinking about accountability with scholars or um, creating and mediating between their experiences, like as they grow up and as they start to articulate their own voices in the classroom. So being in a classroom, it's a lot about like facilitating that experience for scholars. But you're really you work with your team, but you're operating in that silo of the classroom a lot of times. I know in middle school and high school, you get multiple classes. So you're still operating within your one class a lot of times, even though you have like over 100 kids. When it comes to managing people, well, adults have their already lived experience up to that point. And so when you're managing people, you have to really start to consider also that they have their own wants, their own needs, their own lives. and how all of that can be influenced in the work that they're doing as well. And so, yeah, it's starting to like really build my muscle as well in regards to like emotional intelligence and how to have the tough conversations with people and not just scholars or students. So it's been fairly interesting thus far.
Yeah, that is really interesting because with students, like what you were saying, like they are growing into their personality, right? So
Hmm.
like their feelings and emotions are like all new and they're experiencing for the first time, and you're just facilitating that,
Hmm.
right? In terms of adults, they already have these lived experiences. But I guess I'm curious, what facilitation or people management does being an AP or assistant principal entail?
So I'll use our most recent example. We do, so everyone gets like observations and feedback. I think as educators, we're all pretty familiar with that. So most recently, we had our first round of what we call step backs. And step backs are when you'll sit one-on-one with every teacher that's on your caseload. So I serve kindergarten and first grade teachers. So I have about 16 teachers on my caseload. And I sit down with each one individually and we go over their glows. So the things that they're doing amazing at in the classroom, and then their grows. So areas where there's opportunity for growth. And within that, and I really try to hold those conversations sacred in itself, but the overarching theme is there are areas where you're winning and areas where you need growth. And typically, what I'll notice is the areas where there is growth tend to come with um, a plethora of also lived experiences because real humans come to work. And so sometimes it is a case of them being burnt out, especially towards this part of the year where it's November, breaks are coming around, we're getting into the middle of the year. So some of those lived experiences start to show up in the classroom. And a lot of teachers, they're doing a great job at holding life boundaries. But again, they're adults and real humans come to work. So some of those things start to kind of come out in those conversations. And so the work of people management is also helping them navigate through what their lived experiences is like home life and like human life and what their experiences is in the classroom currently and how those two things overlap, but also how to help them still navigate around like boundaries. So what does it mean to still show up as your best self within the classroom and to stay asset based in everything that's happening, so that we can continue to serve our scholars and to also give them what they deserve. So, like, they deserve to feel good coming into work every day, and especially coming into classrooms. So, helping them to also build that emotional constancy.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I want to touch on something you just mentioned. So I guess I don't know, in my head, I'm trying to wrest the idea. Is it easier dealing with students than it is adults? Because the way my head is imagining it is if your student is struggling in class, as the teacher or the adult, you can find out the whole picture. You can find
Mhm.
out their school life, their at home life, their parent life, their social life, right? To get the full picture to help them better, right? For adults, I'm not
Yeah,
telling my AP what's going on.
right, right, right.
Yeah,
Um, Gosh, it's so that's such a good question because it is and it isn't, because you're right. Like with the students, you can get that whole picture, and a
easily.
lot
You can
of times,
easily get the whole picture. Yeah.
and a lot of times too, that helps us give them grace, and it helps us to have a lot more patience, especially because like they're growing into that emotional intelligence, like they're figuring the things out. Um, with adults, it's two-sided because on one end, because they are adults, a lot of times they do have like a, well, oftentimes it's not 100% of the time, they do have emotional intelligence, like to a certain point where they can have that self-awareness, so like they can speak on how they're feeling and what's happening. And sometimes you will have to coach them up to a point of like, okay, how is this showing up in the classroom? Or like, how is this showing up to where there's a growth area? But sometimes, because of that level of emotional intelligence, they can come to those conclusions for themselves. It's just a matter of like guiding them within that conversation, which is also, it's very rewarding. So like for them to be able to come to that conclusion without you. With the students, you might have to help them draw that conclusion more. So it's a little bit of both. I think there are Yeah, I think it really depends, honestly.
Yeah, okay, okay. So maybe a harder question, which one's easier, students or adults?
Um, the jury is still out. No,
Yeah, I
um,
hear it. No, I hear it. Yeah. Those
yeah,
things.
I'm sorry. I think, yeah, I do think the jury's still, because I think at this point in the year, it's only been a few months in my first year, but I will say that because adults come with more of a lived experience, that it does make it a bit more challenging. Um, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I love the answer because it is a journey. It's never going to be finished. So yeah, you definitely hit the nail on that one. Maybe going further into your journey becoming an assistant principal, right? So you were teaching for 6 years, an education specialist during that time also, and then you finally moved out to be the assistant principal. How did you know you were ready?
Oh my gosh, I did. I was so afraid you're gonna ask that question. No, I'm kidding.
Yup, it's coming.
Yeah, I don't know if I knew that I was ready. So, ready for this role in particular. So, last year when I was teaching, there was a sense of like, okay, I know exactly what I'm doing. This content, got it in the bag. Like, I could teach backwards, upside down, eyes closed at this point. So, like, there was that level of confidence I have within myself and instruction, and also like collaborating with my team. When I started applying for outside positions or other positions, when I applied for this role, there wasn't even, and honestly, I think it was just a God sent moment, because when I applied, I was like, you know what? Let's just try it. Like, let's see what happens. So I looked up the school. When I was looking up the school and reading through everything that they had accomplished and like the vision that they had set out, I was like, okay, like it seems like they're really doing the work that is necessary right now. And so let's see. And I did. I went through a very lengthy interview process. But the more I got into the interview process, the more I realized that I was ready. So maybe it was that, like, it was all the intentional work that they had done to set up so many moments to honestly help me see for myself, like, yeah, like I am ready for this. Like, I have the wherewithal. I have the confidence within myself to step into this. So
Yeah, and your work now just proves that you always had it, right?
yeah,
And maybe just off from the side, like I thought it's another purpose of interviews for you to flex and like show off and brag about yourself, you know?
yeah, for
Yeah, we
sure.
got you. We got you, Miss Lewis, great teacher of all time. So one other thing I wanted to just talk about was I think it's important for teachers or educators in general to sometimes revisit their teaching philosophies, right? The reasons why they got into it, right? What is
Mhm.
your philosophy as an assistant principal, and how did that change from you being a standard teacher?
Yeah. So my philosophy has always been built around joy within learning and wanting to see students win. So growing up, I'm from Fayetteville, North Carolina, affectionately Dreamville, for all my J. Cole fans out there. But I say that to say a lot of what I saw growing up was no one around me. So in the schools that I attended was winning, if you will. It was just kind of passing along. We're here because we have to be, essentially. And so getting into education, my philosophy started to be built around that. So I wanted to create experiences where my students were winning, and not just showing up every day to fill like whatever quota or because the law. So for them to be winning meant holding like a certain bar of excellence within academics while also pairing that with joy, pure, unfiltered, just joy of being in the room, being in the space where you feel connected and welcomed, but also seen and valued. Um, that was my philosophy that I held within teaching. So always creating experiences where joy was present, and also like a level of rigor in academics was held at a bar to where like I'm not lowering it. Um, you're going to meet me up here. I'll give you whatever interventions you need, but you're going to meet me here and we're going to have fun while doing it. That actually has stayed constant through my first year here being an assistant principal is whenever I'm going into any classrooms, because we are in our classrooms a lot, we do a lot of coaching every single day, it's still there. So holding a very high bar for academics, while also when I walk into rooms, there has to be joy. Like we have to have some fun while we're doing whatever it is, even when it comes to like we're getting ready for state testing, it's still going to be infiltrated with a lot of joy, because we can get down to business and we can also have a fun time doing it.
Yeah, and that's great. And it sounds like you're doing exactly that. But I guess I'm curious, how does that translate to being an assistant principal? Right? Like, are you instilling that joy with your teachers?
So that is the work that we're trying to set out to do. Yeah, I think so. Whenever I'm leading what we call our IPM, so your weekly planning meeting, where you sit down and you meet with the team and you plan for the next week. It lives in those moments. So everyone coming together and just making sure to keep the energy up because things throughout the day can get stressful. It gets really real most days, and so my job as an assistant principal is to be the thermostat, if you will. So, like, I set the level of energy. And then I also leave space and help bring out that's it's almost like this natural a lot of teachers, especially being in the lower grades like kindergarten, first grade, especially my kindergarten teachers, they are already full of like this bubbly energy, but things can get really it can get stressful at times, but we all know that to be true within education. So helping to see that in them, having those conversations with them and bringing it out. So like, hey, I know this to be true about you, but I noticed like today you weren't really feeling it. Like, what is that? How can I support you in getting back to an emotional, constant place to bring that joy out that I already know is there? So a lot of it is pulling out what I already know to be true about the teachers that I'm serving and helping them to live in the fullness of that.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it before, but does that also help with the teacher burnout epidemic?
I think it does. So on a certain because so a teacher that I have in mind right now, one of my first grade teachers, she is naturally culture influenced in the sense I see so much of myself in her actually. So she's also naturally inclined to um, do the heavy lifting of like student culture and school culture. So like bringing all of the joy, if you will. I know I feel like I sound like a broken record at this point, but that's how
Ah, it's
much.
great. That's you. It's philosophy.
Um, so, but I say all that too because she is also naturally inclined to bring out like social emotional learning and make sure all those things are infused. And I think because it matters so deeply to her, whenever I'm able to go in and help pull that out of her while helping to balance the other things, right? So helping her to find the balance so that she can keep pulling out something that matters so much to her is what makes her feel seen. It makes her thoughts feel valid, and it makes her experience more full and bright because she's not just showing up to work every day. She's showing up to work and she is able to show who she is and do some of the things that she loves and that she wants to see within education, which even with the workload that we all have, having those moments where we can actually show up and do something like the bigger part of what we love, it matters. And I do think that it helps combat burnout at least just a little bit because, okay, now I'm still able to go in and have fun and do the things that I enjoy doing.
Yeah, and I think that's part of a great part of being an assistant principal is that you're bringing out the joy in these educators, right? Because
Yeah.
we all know that it takes a certain type of person to want to be a teacher, right? A certain type of person to stay in it for a long time. And the thing that makes them special is that joy they have in doing the education.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the more often that we can create those intentional moments for that to live, um, this is my prayer out loud, the more likely it will be that we are experiencing less burnout. And that is not the only thing. However, I do think that it is a large part of it.
Yeah, man, that is huge. Wow. Thank you so much, Nyia. I have
Yeah.
one more for you. I'm just so curious. You were a great educator, moving on to the education specialist, now an assistant principal. You're doing so much in the field, and it seems like you can excel in anything. Why are you still in education?
I am still in education because I still deeply believe in the work that we are doing. And I actually attribute a lot of it to the current charter network that I'm working with. Um, there, there is so much happening in education right now, and a lot of things that are being re-brought to the surface to where it can be very defeating. Um, but I still deeply believe in not only our students and our scholars, but I believe in educators and what we came here to do. I think I keep saying it when I say joy, but it's also just we are doing something that not many other people are willing to do. And I just deeply believe in our ability to rally, if you will, but I deeply believe in our ability to pivot. Um, and I know right now there are a lot of things going up against the work that we are doing. And I say we, like educators, teachers, admin, school leadership, everyone that works within a school building. There's a lot that is going up against us, but I believe that I am, and especially the network that I'm working with right now, are going to be a large part of this pivot that happens where it is possible to still have joyful school experiences. It is possible to push the level of rigor. It is possible to show up to work every day and want to be there. It is also possible to have boundaries. It's possible to have all of that within a school experience and to still be human on the other side of that. So yeah, I think I believe in the pivot right now, if you will, that something has got to change and it's starting to happen right now.
Man, that is great. And I love to hear the educators with the vision and the hope that things can get better. This is great. This is really great.
Hmm.
Yeah, but Nyia, Miss Lewis, thank you so much for this. Your philosophy and being an assistant principal, your ability to spark joy in the teachers and everything you're doing are all part of the reasons why I think you might be one of the greatest teachers of all time.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
really, really. And also, thanks to my sponsors like Costco, Teachers of Color Matter, and Victorious RED Restoration, and a few anonymous donors. We'd actually like to give you this $150 gift card. Choose with you, your students, your teachers, or whatever you choose.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, of course, of course. You deserve it. You are a great educator and you need to get highlighted for it.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. So yeah, once the cameras go off, I'll get your address and figure out how to mail this gift card to you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, all right. To everyone else, thank you for watching The Greatest Teacher of All Time, where I, Quincy Dawson, interview teachers of color, highlight their personalities, strategies, and philosophies on education. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. And if you really liked it, leave a comment for me and Nyia to see. Also, if you are the greatest teacher of all time, or if you know the greatest teacher of all time, let me know. Go to greatestteacherofalltime.com and click on Submit a Teacher. Hope to see you soon.